what they endured at Valley Forge. I stood on those grounds. We went to Gettysburg. I stood on those battlegrounds. I didn't learn about history on this trip. I learned about responsibility, perseverance, courage, tenacity, the American way, how it was born. I haven't been really studying history, but I have two buddies of mine who invited me to go on this trip, and they've been studying the Revolutionary War sites, Civil War sites, and for the past 5 years, they've been going on these trips once a year. They do a lot of research. I haven't really been interested in these kind of things, but they invited me over and over again. Each year they invite me, and this year I said, okay, I'm going to go. I'm going to go this year. And so we did. We went to Philadelphia, and wow, I was touched. I was inspired. I was motivated. It wasn't just a history lesson for me. Just being in Philadelphia with my brothers, who I worked with at the LA Sheriff's Department over 35 years ago. Well, let's say 30 years ago. And here we are on these battlefields, standing side by side after 30 years of brotherhood, having worked together on the front lines of crime in LA. And now here we were amongst the statues in the fields of Gettysburg, where so much blood was spilled by citizen against citizen. And it was very moving, all these places, even in Philadelphia. You know, stupid me, a lot of the history I had either forgotten or I never knew that Philadelphia at one time was the capital of the United States, or the 13 colonies. And so what all these citizens, people, the colonial army, what they had to do and what they had to endure for the birth of our nation. Just thinking about the 13 colonies, right, under the rule and control of the British Empire, right? British soldiers were present over here amongst the colonies. And then here the colonies were thriving, capitalists. They were doing, creating, making things, planting, harvesting, doing well. And then the British government, King George III, said, hey, we got to take advantage of their prosperity. We are going to tax them more, tax them here, tax them there, right? Taxation without representation. And then we have two patriots dressing up as Indians and dumping all that tea, the Boston Tea Party, and how that sparked and really started up the revolution. And then, wow, just George Washington, who met at the First Continental Congress in Philadelphia. We were in the room where they first met before the Declaration of Independence was signed, you know, and I didn't know that there was a Declaration of Dependence, right? There was three groups of people, almost like we have today, right? There was a group who were for our sovereignty and our separation from England and from Britain. Then there was a group of us, a group that wanted to stay, right? They wanted to stay under King George III and the British Empire. And then there was a group that were kind of neutral. They really didn't care one way or the other. They didn't think it affected them at all. Almost like today, right? We have people who are really, really engaged, involved in the politics and what's going on. Then there's the other side who is just as involved and engaged against that side. And then there's the group in the middle. They don't really care. They're kind of just like it was back then. But those 56 men who ended up signing the Declaration of Independence, right, with a big threat over their head, right, the threat of death. Because if this didn't work out, as those men said, or a couple of them said, one of them said, right, if we don't hang together, we will surely hang individually. Because they signed their name on the line. They put their lives on the line because there was a good chance, if it didn't work out, that they would be shipped over to England to be tried and hanged as traitors for committing treason against the British Empire. And that was a big risk. But they persevered. And it wasn't easy. And it went on for a long, long time. Even after the Declaration of Independence was signed, the war continued. Britain actually, when Philadelphia was the capital, they actually conquered Philadelphia. And like they always had done in the past, when they conquered the capital, that was the end of it. But not for us. not for the U.S., not for the colonies, no way. No, they just moved it. They moved the capital to York, Pennsylvania. And so we continued. And George Washington, the best man for the job, I'm learning from all the history that we learned, the best man for the job, not necessarily the best general that was for the battles. He lost a lot of battles. He lost battle after battle. He really didn't do a great job sometimes in gathering intelligence, in strategy to win the battle. But after being beaten here, there, I can't give you the names of those battles. And then Brandywine was one place. And then he got the troops. There was such a harsh winter. He got them to Valley Forge. He picked that location. It was a strategic place that he could defend. And at the same time now, all these colonial soldiers who came from all over, different backgrounds and experiences, and those soldiers, they didn't have much experience, or at least the same experience that would help them work together as a unit in fighting Britain, the British soldiers. But at Valley Forge, they persevered through harsh, harsh conditions. I mean, unbelievable. And how do we complain today after I saw what they persevered that winter in Valley Forge, and they trained and they marched. And luckily, France had a big stake in, they were at war. They didn't want to see, they wanted to see us when they were convinced by Benjamin Franklin, who went to France and said, we're going to win this thing with your help, with your arms, with you sending people to help us train. And they did at Valley Forge. We had a Frenchman who helped train our colonial soldiers in how to march and how to fight with bayonets, right? How to advance, right? Shoulder to shoulder, how someone is reloading, someone is shooting, and all these tactics that after they left Valley Forge allowed them to win battles, and eventually we won our freedom, and the war. A lot of things came into play that helped us. But seeing these sites was just amazing. And then, Gettysburg, to be there where all that blood was spilled by, the North against the South, and General Lee and all of these generals and what they did, and all of the colonies that sent representatives down there. And they all had memorials down there at Gettysburg. And it's quite a thing to see. It's now a national federal park. And they protect the area, and and all the battle sites are still protected there, and you can read about the battle sites and see them, and you can go on. We went on a bus tour to learn about this history, right? And both Revolutionary War history, and then we also, Gettysburg, we learned Civil War history, and it was amazing. And God, I learned so much about the history of our country. But more than that, the perseverance of these early settlers, the colonists, the courage, the perseverance, what they had to endure to keep going. So many died, right, of all these diseases, hypothermia, and just that's where they, I didn't realize they came up with inoculations against, was it smallpox? I can't remember. But they would actually put a cut in you, and then you would get some of that, the disease, and then you would get the antibodies. And George Washington, he wouldn't let the soldiers get the inoculation. But then when Martha did it, she did it to her. She had someone to do it for her. Then he saw the results, and then he had all the soldiers get inoculated. But just a lot went on. And it was just great to be there with my brothers from Los Angeles, getting together with them, fellowshipping again. Both last year, I got together with one of these guys. They came to visit me at the island, and then about 3 years before that, they were both visiting me at the island. At the same time, I remember they were visiting Revolutionary War sites up in the upstate New York area. And next year, they're going to come back to the island because they want to visit some sites around Quebec, where we tried to take Canada, and that did not work out. We did not win that battle or that war. No, we did not get Canada, but we sure tried. Tried to make that the 14th colony, but didn't happen. But more than a history lesson from this trip, it was really a lesson in perseverance, courage, tenacity, right? Training, brotherhood, and just and learning about the birth of our nation and the country and the 250th anniversary. What a better time to visit Philadelphia. Really, I liked the city. It was great. I had a good time. It was a little bit chilly, but right. And then I was thinking, what am I going to complain about a little bit chilly after seeing what all these colonial soldiers went through, seeing what all they went through at the Civil War? No way am I going to complain about a little chilly day, right? But we had one day that was 70, and then the other one day started at 39, but it was great to get together. So we spent what did we spend? 5 nights, I think, 6 days there in Philadelphia, Airbnb in Chinatown, which was a great place, a great base to. We visited one. I think it was 3 hours to Gettysburg. That we visited, then 3 hours back, obviously. That was a 12-hour day. And then we went to Brandywine, which is one of the Revolutionary War sites that Washington basically lost, or else, we didn't win and they retreated. And that was quite a thing to see. And so it was a great trip, everybody. I had to share that with you because there was a lot of lessons learned from the trip. And I got a couple books that I'm going to be reading and rereading and learning more about our nation's history and what we had to endure, what the colonial soldiers had to endure, and how we ended up going from, this colonial group of 13 colonies and then became the United States of America. So much history, and I think it's important that we learn it, right? I guess we learned a lot of it in school. I hardly remember any of it. Now it's time to relearn and really learn, because we don't want to repeat some of the mistakes that we made, and knowing where we came from, so important. But it was a great time in Philadelphia. And if you haven't taken the trip and visited some of these historical sites, Gettysburg, really it's a must-see, I think. And definitely Valley Forge is a must-see. There was no battles fought there. They were prepared. They set up camp. And they had lookouts and cannons all set up on this hill overlooking these valleys. So if they were to be attacked by the British soldiers, there was a skirmish or two, a couple shots fired, but no real battles. And what I learned is the British soldiers didn't fight in the winter or at night, and that kind of hurt them, because we were willing to fight in the winter and at night, and that's why George Washington was able to prevail eventually, even in New York. And so I wanted to share my experience with you just from the heart. I don't have any notes. I'm not showing pictures here with this episode, but thinking about what some people had to go through in the beginning of our country and what they endured, these soldiers, these colonial soldiers, and the people that were actually following behind, right, their family members and spouses who were fighting in this war. They had to endure these harsh conditions at Valley Forge too. Crazy. Who are we to complain? They endured Valley Forge. What about us? Hey, listen. Here's the paradox. Choose hard and your life will be easy. If you choose the easy way, your life's going to be hard. That's just a lesson that we should all keep in the back of our minds every day, every way, so that we can get better than we were yesterday. All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I just wanted to recap my trip to Philadelphia. Started out as a historical trip with my brothers from Los Angeles, who I worked side by side with on the front lines of crime for the LA Sheriff's Department. And it turned out to be a lesson in perseverance, courage, tenacity, and what we had to do to be a sovereign nation, the United States of America eventually. And we did it. And look what we have today. Hey, I love you. I'll see you in the next episode. Please subscribe to the channel if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on one of the podcast platforms, listen. After you're done listening, head on over to YouTube. Check out the video version and subscribe to the channel. Join a community of progress. And I'll tell you, this trip was a lesson in progress and how, we can't lose if we don't quit. All right, everybody. I love you. I'll see you in the next video.